What is up, YouTube? Welcome to Panfro Games, and today we're going to be covering a brand new Pokemon UNITE tier list, covering Mamoswine and the Sylveon updates. And before we dive in, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, like the video. I really appreciate it. And in this tier list video, I'm going to be talking from my perspective as a Masters solo queue player, but also some perspective from the pro scene as well, and what pros are thinking, but also my thoughts and feelings from mostly my experience. So let's just dive right into the tier list, because we got a lot of Pokemon to cover, and these tier list videos are getting very long, so sit back, have a nice cup of coffee, and enjoy this. So we're going to be starting off with Gengar, and I think Gengar is a very easy C tier. Gengar is just one of the weakest, if not the weakest. Actually, no, he is the weakest speedster in the game. I think a C is a very average place to put Gengar. I don't think he's D tier because he is usable. He can win games. It's just really hard, and he does have to do a lot of work. His laning is pretty awful, and his ganks aren't that great. He does do a lot of damage, but he gets obliterated pretty quickly, and he does not take out as many targets as someone like an Absol does as quickly. He's honestly strictly a worse Absol when I really think about Gengar, and it's just unfortunate. However, speaking about really amazing speedster, and actually the best speedster in the game currently, Talonflame. Talonflame is a top A ranked Pokemon right now. Talonflame has the scariest ganks in the game. Absolutely a crazy Pokemon. One of the best Pokemon for nailing objectives by using Fly. Its ultimate ability is great for moving objectives, taking out enemies because it does so much damage, but also just moving them, moving back Rotom as well. It's just, Talonflame is such a good Pokemon, has a great kit, actually has the highest physical damage in the game right now too. The only reason why Talonflame is not an S tier is because Talonflame is a Pokemon that can get obliterated really quickly, has very low defense, very low HP. So I don't think this Pokemon's broken. This Pokemon can be stopped by any sort of crowd control ability, however, has great escapes with Fly, and can also just ruin your team with his high attack. And it's just a perfect Pokemon for the hit and run playstyle. So the ganks are fantastic, but I don't think it's OP. But I do think this Pokemon is in a perfect place in the meta, and I'm really glad that those attack buffs, especially to Fly, is really showing that Talonflame has a place in this meta, which is very nice because speedsters didn't have any sort of place a couple patches ago. So now into Alolan Ninetails. I think Alolan Ninetails is like, I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna be really real here. I think it's a B tier. I've had this Pokemon in A tier for a long time. I think the meta has shifted to a point where Alolan Ninetails just has a big problem with how fast everyone is. And Alolan Ninetails is honestly an attack support. You don't really run the Avalanche Blizzard build. You're gonna be really running the Dazzling Gleam and Aurora Veil build, which is good. It's a good support build. It's similar to like Blissey in that wave of Aurora Veil, but you're adding an additional stun and freezes. You have a really strong early game in lane, but I do think this Pokemon does eventually fall off a bit. Not to say B is bad. B is a good tier, but I think Alolan Ninetails can be buffed a little bit. And I think the buffs we want to see for Alolan Ninetails is you want a stronger ultimate ability. I think the ultimate is a little bit lackluster, honestly, compared to a lot of Pokemon in this game. The damage output isn't too good. I feel like you would never run the damage build on Alolan Ninetails, so I think a little bit of buffs could be used there. And I mean, as a support, it's good, but they're just better supporters right now. I do think Alolan Ninetails is probably the best damage support, but if I want a damage support, I could just play someone who just does more damage or does supporting better. So I think that's where Alolan Ninetails, like, it has a niche. Especially with Mamoswine, there's a freeze build niche for lane, really good in lane, but I think this Pokemon does fall off in the late game. And overall, good Pokemon, but just not one of the best. Cinderace. Where did I put Cinderace? I'm gonna be real. I think Cinderace is high A tier as well. I think this Pokemon is really balanced and incredibly strong. One of the best junglers. Talonflame probably ends up being a better jungler, but Cinderace ends up being the better Pokemon, because I will say Talonflame should never be played in lane, but Cinderace has a lot of flexibility and can be played in jungle or in lane and have incredible results. Incredible ganks. Powerball does so much damage. The DPS on this Pokemon is wonderful. You go full damage with Muscle Band, Razor Claw, and Scope Lens, and you're just gonna be Crit City with this Pokemon, and it's overall really easy to play. I think the hard part about Cinderace playing is just trying to, you know, avoid the enemy. You are a glass cannon, so all about your distancing, how well you can kite, but overall, I think the Pokemon's easy to play. Very good. Your damage isn't as OP as it once was in previous patches, but is in a good place right now, and I really think Cinderace is definitely a Pokemon you can main in solo queue right now and really climb that ranked ladder pretty easily. So now to our very first S tier, which is Lucario. Lucario is still the best Pokemon in the game. Nothing has changed to Lucario. I'm actually sort of surprised how they have not nerfed Lucario in any way, shape, or form since our last video. It's sort of crazy, honestly. This Pokemon, so in the pro meta, Lucario runs top solo, and then 3 Pokemon go bot, usually some sort of an attacker and 2 supports. The fact that Lucario can just run a lane by itself and win is crazy to me. Yeah, this Pokemon definitely needs to be nerfed, and the issue is Steadfast is really strong. Not only, and also Extreme Speed has Life Steal. There's just a lot of interesting aspects of Lucario that can be toned down, but mostly it's Steadfast, and the fact that Lucario can very easily score goals and doesn't really have any sort of counterplay for the most part. There are Pokemon that does make Lucario's life a little bit difficult. I would say Mamoswine is pretty good at that. Also, I think Sylveon is really good at that too, but right now there's no hard counter to Lucario, and he can just still solo a lane in top. But if you're playing Masters solo, you can just run him in bot, and he can win bot lane, take the tower, and then you can just get Dreadnought for free. So overall, really OP in every facet. The only way he's not OP is his ultimate. His ultimate's pretty weak, but he doesn't need a strong ultimate ability when all his other moves are incredible. So we're gonna put Charizard in B tier under Alolan Ninetails. I think Charizard is in an interesting spot in the meta where Charizard has some awkward growing pains getting up to Charizard, sort of like how Garchomp has some awkward growing pains, but Charizard's payoff is way better, and Charmander and Charmeleon are not as useless as Gibble and Gabite, even though they got buffed. I still think Charmander and Charmeleon have much better laning phases overall. You can run jungle with Charizard, and it's actually pretty decent. It's not top tier or meta or anything, but it is good, and I wouldn't be upset if I see it on my team. Charizard's ultimate ability is crazy, though. I think that's what's really holding Charizard right now. An incredible ultimate ability. Actually, I'm going to put him over Alolan Ninetails. But I do think in the current meta, he does have the bulk to last. His ultimate ability just gives him essentially a second life and does so much damage and lots of life regen as well. Charizard's not bad. I do want to experiment more with Charizard, so maybe I'll think better of Charizard in the future, but I think B is a good place for him right now in my mind. So Pikachu, I'm going to be running in, I think, the high C, at least above Gengar for the moment. Pikachu is just very easy to use, but does not have great special attack scaling. More of a attack support similar to Ninetales, but I think Ninetales does it honestly overall better because at least Aurora Veil is a pure support move, while Pikachu is more of a damage support. Good for picking off kills potentially with Electro Ball, but overall very squishy. Has decent movement, but you just get executed pretty easily, and you don't have as many stuns as Ninetales does. You do have a better ultimate in Ninetales, but the ultimate's just not too great overall, and having a better ultimate than Ninetales isn't anything to speak of. I don't think Pikachu is necessarily bad, but I think you have to work a lot harder with Pikachu than any other attacker in the game right now. Well, for the most part, but overall, just Pikachu is a very beginner-friendly character and doesn't strive to be anything more than a beginning-friendly character right now, which is okay. Slowbro, I'm gonna be real. I think Slowbro is D tier still, and I did play. So they had a week in Pokemon Unite where you gotta win. You gotta play 6 games of Slowbro. So I did recently actually get into Slowbro, and yeah, Slowbro just feels bad still. Surf is his best move. I think Surf Amnesia is still the best set because Telekinesis is very hit or miss. I mean, the move doesn't work half the time, honestly. Especially in solos, you got to really rely on your teammates to make Amnesia. I mean, not Amnesia, Telekinesis to be worth any sort of wild. And right now, I think Amnesia is way more consistent. than Telekinesis, and at least allows you to do some damage and have more sustain in fights. The reality is Slowbro does 0 damage. His Surf is strictly worse than Blastoise's Surf in every way, shape, and form. And I feel like this Pokemon needs big buffs. If you're gonna make him do no damage, he needs to have way more defense. More defense and more special defense. I mean, he already has pretty bad movement speed. Doesn't necessarily have the best HP bar either. Has very slow scoring. I just can't recommend Slowbro over someone like Blastoise when Blastoise literally just does what Slowbro wants, but better in every way, shape, or form. I feel like also Wigglytuff is way more tankier too and has better crowd control options. Snorlax has better cloud control options, and same with Mamoswine, and they honestly have just as much tankiness, if not more, than Slowbro. So we're gonna put him in D, unfortunately. And I'm very sad to say that because Slowbro was my main originally in the beta. So I just have to say bye to my bro. I'm gonna put Machamp. Actually, he had him in D tier last time. I'm gonna put him in C. Because I will say Machamp does have a good ganking ability. The issue with Machamp right now is Machamp is the worst all-arounder, in my opinion. I do think Garchomp is a better all-arounder, spoilers. And he's just doesn't provide enough. I feel like I'd rather sort of have a Gill than a Machop in my lane. At the end of the day, I think Gill has a bit more bulk going on for him, and Machop's pretty useless. Machoke is where the power spike begins, where you get submission. You can start doing damage, but you have to run submission, cross chomp to get any viability out of Machamp right now. I think his jungle is just... Putting him in a jungle is similar to how putting Gengar in a jungle, where you really just took out such a good spot for another Pokemon like a Cinderace or a Talonflame or like a Greninja or even a Lucario, Blastoise. I mean, there's so many other Pokemon I'd rather have in a jungle than these two Pokemon. And I feel like Machamp and Gengar share this very similar problems where there's better Pokemon to fill their niche, and unfortunately, as stage 3 Pokemon, they take a while to come online, and by the time they come online, it could be too late for them to try to salvage the game. Personally, actually, I would probably actually put Machamp over Gengar, just because I think Machamp's ultimate and his general bulk is better than Gengar, and because Gengar just dies immediately, at least Machamp will be around in a team fight. And Machamp has really good matchups against teams that rely on crowd control, so I will give that on Machamp over Gengar currently. But I do think it's just a lot of effort to run Machamp right now, and you're not going to get a lot of value on him on your team. And now we get Absol, and I think Absol, we're going to be running high B tier. Absol does tons of damage, one of the best early and mid-game Pokemon out there. If this Pokemon gets fed, I actually think it's over. I really think the game is over if Absol starts popping off in the early game and starts snowballing, because by the time you hit your like the 2-minute mark, if Absol is level 15 and you are level 13 or 12, it is over. If this Absol is a good player and they don't get hit by any crazy crowd control abilities, but even then, they will just crit you and kill you, and you got to consider crit with Absol because its ability is crit. So you're going to run all the crit items and it's just going to destroy you. And it's not even luck for getting your critical hits. That's just the character. And this Pokemon's incredible. However, you do not get the snowball going on. Let's say you even do just overall all right in the early and mid game. You will fall off in that late game and you could end up being a liability. You are a Pokemon that's very easily smiteable, and you do not have an ranged attack, which is very scary. So there is high risk, high reward with Absol, but I will say Absol goes into the high B just because that reward is really high. But it's just one of those things where Absol does not have good escapes compared to someone like Talonflame. And I think that's where the big difference is. And also, Talonflame has a better ultimate overall too. Cramorant. So Cramorant, I think, is a bit worse than Ninetails. So Cramorant is a ranged attacker, and Ninetails has a lot of CC. Cramorant has a little bit of CC and forms a Surf. Cramorant has a really good ultimate ability. I think the issue is Cramorant just sort of does not compare to the other attackers that want to fill that niche, where Cinderace, Greninja, and Venusaur really take over, just filling up that great attacker slot. And Cramorant is good, has a great ultimate, but I think outside of that ultimate, you're just not going to see a lot of value reflected on this character. I will say this is a character I do want to explore more, but from my experience playing, a little bit of playing this character and definitely playing with teammates, Cramorant just does not seem too great. I think the early game is incredibly strong. If this Pokemon gets fed, of course, very strong. Ultimate, that is good throughout, but it's just not as easy playing this character versus some other characters, so the amount of effort for output is just not as great on Cramorant as someone like Cinderace, Greninja, or Venusaur right now. Crustal is a very interesting Pokemon, I'll say. Crustal is a B tier Pokemon. I think Crustal's B tier because this Pokemon is not a great defender, is a pretty poor defender. However, one of the best backdooring Pokemon in the entire game. So if you play Crustal in a way where you're going to be backdooring a lot, it's going to be great. Stealth Rocks is great for picking up objectives. However, you do sacrifice with Stealth Rocks the fact that you're not going to be X-Scissoring, and X-Scissoring is the best form of your CC, which is a very weak form of CC if we're going to keep it real, because it is not a straight up knock up or put to sleep or anything. It is a 3-hit attack, which if you miss, you're going to be locked into that animation. People can break you out of that animation too. So there's a lot of problems with X-Scissor, but it is your major form of damage. However, the most popular build I've been seeing is the Stealth Rock Shell Smash build to backdoor and to get objectives, which ends up making Crustal, in my mind, like a support Talonflame. That, I don't want to say sort of like a support Talonflame with a lot more HP and way less damage. And I think you'll end up being more of a distraction on the team. And teams shouldn't really take Crustal seriously if you're facing one. You just really rely on taking out their attackers, and then Crustal will eventually fall because Crustal just doesn't do a lot of damage overall. Zera Aura is A tier to me. I think Zera Aura actually falls a little bit under Talonflame, just because Talonflame has a lot easier ganks and a lot better at confirming objectives. Zera Aura does have more bulk than Talonflame, does have a great ult. I think both their ults are actually incredible. Zera Aura's ult is just a bit better for game winning and team fights, but Talonflame's ult in a team fight has a higher ceiling than Zera Aura's, but Zera Aura's is just so consistent. You could be a bad player and still make Zera Aura be great, so I will say that Zera Aura is just easier to use, and I think that is very valuable. His ult is just better in a lot more situations because instead of doing something crazy with their positioning, you just kill them, and I think that is incredibly valuable. But I think the skill ceiling on Talonflame is a bit higher, so you're gonna get more, and I think your how do I say, is like your impact on the game is higher with Talonflame a little bit than Zera Aura. So that's why I have Zera Aura over Talonflame over Zera Aura. But everyone in A tier is currently how I'd rank the jungle order right now. They're all phenomenal junglers, so it's just one of those things where you cannot, it's really picking between Cinderace, Talonflame, and Zera Aura. You can't really go wrong, and they're all going to be great for your team. So Zera Aura, incredible Pokemon, and I think they're in a great spot in the meta, and I hope they don't get nerfed. Okay, so it's finally a new Pokemon. We get 18 minutes into the video. Oh my goodness. We got Mamoswine, and I think Mamoswine is A tier defender. Mamoswine, one of the best defenders in the game, actually provides a lot of defensive options. The best goal defender in the game, for sure. Absolutely no one can be a better goal defender because of the passive ability that will freeze the goal that you're guarding, which makes it take longer for opponents to score on you, which is a really great counter to Lucario doing micro scoring, because it does give you a little bit more of a chance to do some damage, and especially because any Pokemon that has Score Shield on, Mamoswine is your biggest enemy, because they will make it so they will do more damage to you, and, well, not more damage, but they have more time to do damage to you, to break your Score Shield, to stop your whole stacking of attack weight items and such. Mamoswine has a lot of HP. Damage is pretty weak, but you do have a lot of great hard crowd control. Your cooldowns aren't the best, but you make up for it by being good with your crowd control abilities and displacing the enemy. You have a very safe ultimate ability, which is actually not bad for confirming objectives like Dreadnought and Zapdos. I've definitely stolen plenty of Dreadnoughts and Zapdoses with Mamoswine's ability, so I think Mamoswine is an A tier defender, has lived up to the hype. Maybe some people think Mamoswine isn't that good, but trust me, Mamoswine, if you play correctly as a goal defender, one of the best Pokemon in the game right now. And I will also put Wigglytuff in A tier. Funny enough that Wigglytuff's still green on this, even though they're a supporter, because they might as well be a defender. So yeah, the nerfs to Wigglytuff definitely hurt Wigglytuff a good amount from being OP, but you know, especially with sleep. But overall, this Pokemon's still great, still very bulky. Sleep is very useful in team fights as well. It's gonna be a little bit more strategic. Essentially, you're better at, instead of being an offensive sleeper, you're gonna be more of a defensive sleeper, which is still phenomenal. Your early game is a little bit weaker than before, but it's still good. And overall, the most important thing about Wigglytuff is you have the, actually, I'm gonna put Wigglytuff over Mamo. Actually, I'm gonna put Wigglytuff over Zera Aura. Wigglytuff is one of the best Pokemon to have in your team. Necessary support in a team that is running 2 supports. I think this is the support you run along with Eldergoss. Spoiler alert, because your ultimate ability will win you team fights. Straight up, you will win team fights. You will win Zapdos because of giving your whole team shields. And there's just enough said on that, honestly. Just giving your whole team a massive shield, and especially Buddy Barrier, giving you and your lowest HP'd buddy another shield. Incredible. So Blastoise, I'm gonna put at high A tier. I had this Pokemon in S tier before. I think Blastoise ends up being A tier now. Just because Rapid Spin is just really left the meta, and the damage just isn't there. However, you have the best Surf in the game. Hydro Pump's great for displacing as well and pushing back Rotoms. Your ultimate ability is the best ultimate ability for taking objectives for Dreadnought and Zapdos, and just does so much damage, and they didn't nerf it, so it isn't working as intended now. I just don't think this Pokemon's broken though, because as I said, Rapid Spin isn't busted, and I think you have one set now. It's very predictable what you're going to be doing, and that's fine. I think this Pokemon's in a perfect place. Garchomp. I think Garchomp is actually... You know, I said these things about Machamp before, and Machamp is probably a little bit better than Garchomp, but I'm actually gonna... They're like tied. I'm gonna honestly say they're tied. I think Garchomp has a better... Gible is better than Machop. Machoke is better than Gabite. And then I think Garchomp and Machamp are sort of tied. I think you get a little bit more output for Garchomp overall. So I'm going to put Garchomp above Machamp there. Yeah, that's fair. I think now that I'm really thinking about it, Garchomp has a little bit more output in the team fight. I think Machamp is better in certain team comps and certain team matchups because of the CC abilities. You're just ignoring it. But Garchomp's damage output is crazy, has a lot of lifesteal. And Gible is someone who is surprisingly strong in the early game right now. Just not too strong, not OP, but I think they're a lot stronger than they were before, and a lot better than, I would say, a lot better than Ghastly and Machop. And also, decent jungler, has some decent ganking abilities too. So I think Garchomp could use another buff, but right now, I think they're average. I think they're okay. Gardevoir is D tier. I don't think it's the worst character. I think Slowbro is the worst character, but Gardevoir, yeah, it can do massive damage for sure. Has a great ultimate. It's just worse Garchomp syndrome where Ralts is terrible. Curlia is a Pokemon, but doesn't do a lot of damage. Gets smited immediately. And once you become a Gardevoir, yeah, your damage output spikes a lot. Your ultimate ability is crazy, but your HP is not great. You don't have a lot of... Essentially, your damage is coming from your moves and not from your auto attacks. And people are like, oh, jungle Gardevoir is good. No, because you took a great jungle spot from someone who's way more important than you. And then in lane, your lane is going to get constantly ganked. You're like, if you bring Ralts to lane or jungle, you are just hurting your team so much, and is a 4v5 until level 10. And once you're level 10, you become a Pokemon, but by then it could be too late. And even then, you gotta nail an ultimate ability in a critical moment against Zapdos to be viable. And I just don't want to make these scenarios up, because at the end of the day, most of the time it's just not going to happen. Gardevoir just ends up being just just to be, it ends up being a third wheel on your team essentially. So Snorlax, I'm actually gonna put Snorlax. I'm gonna put Snorlax in the highest B tier Pokemon right here. So Snorlax dropped from A to B for me, because there's only one set now. Yawn is bad and is really bad, and getting your steroid is, yeah, it's a meme build, but at that point you just sort of wasted a slot. So you really have one build. You have Heavy Slam and you have Block. The block nerfs, the issue with block is that the issue with Snorlax is honestly, you can just use Blastoise. Blastoise has a lot of bulk, and Surf is better at displacing than block will ever be at this point. And Wigglytuff has more bulk than Snorlax. And Wigglytuff provides better sleep support than Snorlax does because it's just an AoE around. And Wigglytuff has a much better a game-winning ultimate ability, while Snorlax's ultimate ability is a pretty selfish ability and will not win you objectives, but will make sure that Snorlax survives to live another day. Heavy Slam is very good. Best move in Snorlax's kit at this point. I think is a little bit better in block now. But it's not a unique ability. So I think Snorlax is going to be high B, good Pokemon, great bulk, very great early game, but I think falls off in the late game. And, you know, I feel like if you're going to be running, you have to run block, and if you're going to run block, you need the X speed boost so you can be sprinting at people with block, and a lot of people don't use that. So, all right, Sylveon S tier, straight up. Even after the nerfs, this video is being made after the nerfs, and I think before the nerfs, I think Sylveon was in SS tier, but now we're gonna be in S tier, a little bit under Lucario, because now you don't Lucario has a little bit easier time winning lane than Sylveon, but both of these Pokemon do the same thing where they just hit a certain level and they just destroy your lane. Sylveon is level 4. I think actually Lucario is just born that way. Honestly. So yeah, Sylveon is level 4, and you pick up Hyper Voice, and you sort of just win your lane. If you have a competent teammate in your lane, you can just win that lane very easily. It's Hyper Voice just allows you to 1v2 pretty much in any situation in the early game. And it actually allows you to counter Lucario because you do so much damage that Lucario can't necessarily handle you. But Lucario ends up beating Sylveon because Lucario is a better Pokemon, does have the Steadfast ability, and is a bit easier to play than Sylveon, because I do think Sylveon actually is not the easiest Pokemon to play. But however, Sylveon does not fall off. If you play Jungle Sylveon, incredible. You hit level 8 so easily, and hitting level 8 with Spell Vamp is pretty great. The main thing with Sylveon is, as an attacker, you just pretty much don't die because Calm Mind gives you a lot of special attack and special defense, and you can nullify a move. Unless they're doing physical attack damage to you, then that's your weakness, but you hard counter any special attackers potentially if you're Kit. Especially if you run Mystical Fire, you absolutely hard counter any special attackers, but Calm Mind's the better. Calm Mind, Hyper Voice ends up being the better set. So you still end up being special attackers because Calm Mind raises your special defense, and you just do tons of damage. You shred tanks. Your biggest downside with Sylveon is you just need to learn how to aim Hyper Voice correctly, and don't be fooled into picking up Mystical Fire or Draining Kiss. All right, Mr. Mime, I'm gonna put in the high B tier. Mr. Mime is an attack support with a lot of funny barrier shenanigans. Essentially, you can put your block out in the middle of the screen, but you know, you're not right there, which is pretty good. You do a lot of damage. I think the issue with Mr. Mime is he's very hard to play, and Mr. Mime's he needs a partner. If Mr. Mime doesn't have a partner, it's very easy to jump on Mr. Mime and destroy him. In a 1v1, Mr. Mime's terrifying. In a 2v1, Mr. Mime is cake. However, in a 2v2, Mr. Mime becomes terrifying again. So his early game is very great. Just he falls off late game. Ultimate falls off late game. He can be strategically incredible by using barrier, but overall, he's a good Pokemon. He's a good Pokemon. He's not for everyone, but he's very good. All right, Greninja. I think Greninja is A tier, and I think Greninja honestly ends up being, I think he's a little bit better in Zera Aura overall. I think he can be better in Zera Aura, and personally, I have a little bit of a bias towards Greninja. I think Cinderace does end up being better. I think Cinderace and Greninja are the two very similar DPS Pokemon, and Cinderace ends up being better in that case. The nerfs to Greninja is just really showing in this current meta right now. He just has the lowest HP in the entire game, and especially when you add more crowd control and more HP shredders like Mamoswine and Sylveon, he's going to get a little bit affected by that, and his ultimate ability is just not as good as some of the others in this class. I think Sylveon and Cinderace and Venusaur end up having better ultimate abilities than Greninja. He's very good. He just requires a lot of skill to play. I do love playing him, so I am a little bit biased in that case, but he just fell off a little bit from his S tier days. Eldergoss. I think Eldergoss is incredibly balanced. I had Eldergoss in S tier before, so I don't think Eldergoss is broken, which is why I'm taking Eldergoss from S. However, I think this Pokemon is probably the strongest support in the game. I think this Pokemon should be run on every team comp. If you're going to run 2 supports, you're going to run Wigglytuff and you're going to be running Eldergoss. This Pokemon is just a better Blissey. It's a ranged Blissey that also provides a shield that can heal you on top of that, and an ultimate that's pretty solid as well. This Pokemon is great for adapting to its team comp and also facing against certain Pokemon. Honestly, Eldergoss just has everything you want in a support Pokemon. It's crazy. It's honestly crazy. All right, Venusaur. No, Lucario is still better, but second best Pokemon in the game. Venusaur is the best attacker in the game. This Pokemon's crazy. Venusaur, pretty good laning, but with the moment you hit Ivysaur and get Giga Drain is when things go crazy. Giga Drain will make you win lanes. Then at level 7, you get Petal Dance, and Petal Dance Giga Drain is the combination. Your Petal Dance does damage around you, but also increases your defense, and Giga Drain sucks the life out of the opponents. And it can suck multiple opponents, and does a lot of damage. You get a lot of sustain. Your ultimate ability does a lot of damage and gives you a second life, especially a Buddy Barrier on. You just get a second life, and opponents have to respect you. And the thing with Venusaur is he's very brain dead right now. I'm a Venusaur main, and is very brain dead. Actually, Venusaur and Sylveon main, very brain dead. You just run into opponents, you use Giga Drain, hit auto attacks, you stun them with the third one. They're like, oh no, what do I do? Oh no, I'm getting hit by Petal Drain. Oh no, I'm getting hit. Can't really do anything about it. Pokemon is great at stealing objectives and confirming objectives because Petal Dance is so good at just sitting there and just dealing damage to opponents and objectives. And then Giga Drain does a big chunk of damage too. And the ultimate ability is great for, you know, sniping enemies and picking up objectives as well. And last but not least is a Blissey. I'm gonna put Blissey in low B tier. I think, as I said, Eldergoss is just better Blissey. And the issue with Blissey right now is Blissey just feels like a Pokemon that is sort of a fourth wheel. Or third wheel, I mean. Like a third wheel. This Pokemon, if the person who is using Blissey is not always with a person, then Blissey by himself is pretty useless. A pure support Pokemon with no offensive ability and your physical attacker, so you gotta run up and like hit them. I mean, like, you are a special attacker, but you know, you gotta run up and be a melee attacker. That's what I meant. And it's just pretty weak overall. I think this Pokemon can be great in the pro scene. I think honestly, Eldergoss, Wigglytuff ends up just Eldergoss and Wigglytuff really just put out, you know, this aura that cannot be broken, and Mr. Mime and Blissey cannot really break into that. Well, guys, that was a long tier list video. Let me know in the comments what you agreed with, what you disagree with, and your thoughts and feelings. If you're new to the video, new to the channel, like I said, please subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time with more Pokemon Unite action. Peace out and have a great one.